Hilary Benn, backbencher to the Labour Party, semi-tolerable even by current Labour Party standards. Formerly part of the shadow cabinet until we had a massive falling out with Jeremy Corbyn, someone who I believe would be better than Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the opposition, although this maybe not so much now. Most people have heard of him because of his father, and because of the rather passionate speech he gave when it came to the very long debates about the Syria airstrike, where Jeremy Corbyn gave the typical pacifist response of no, 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 never, no, many of the arguments which I can understand, and actually agree with. Hilary Benn standing up as a part of the shadow cabinet and completely disagreeing with everything that Jeremy Corbyn said. His exile to the backbenches at that point seemed inevitable. Has recently on Twitter released a 4-page document of interest, and I think we should look at that, because this is quintessentially Parliament showing just how out of touch it is with the populace, the peasantry, the oiks, the plebs, and the people less than peasants, but I don't know what they're called. So European Withdrawal No. 6 Bill 2019. Contents including 1. Duties in connection with the withdrawal of the UK from the EU. 2. Report on progress of negotiations of the UK relationship with the EU. 3. Duties in connection with Article 50 extension. 4. Amendment of existing provision. And 5. Interpretation, commencement, extent, and short title. At the end of this, there's a list of names. I'm going to outright state now, you're all heretics. Congratulations. Before we go through the points in turn, I want to quickly read the paragraph above the first one. Be it enacted by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons, lol, in this present Parliament assembled, and by the authority of the same. No deal will ever get through Parliament. We know this. The majorities were, of course, getting smaller, with more leaning towards Theresa May's deal, but there was never enough to get anything across the line, and the only consent or consensus ever reached was that we should remain, because that's all the MPs want. Anyway, 1. Duties in connection with the withdrawal of the UK from the EU. 1. The condition in this subsection is that a Minister of the Crown has laid before each House of Parliament a statement that the UK has concluded an agreement with the EU under Article 50 of the Treaty on the European Union, and a copy of the agreement, and a. The agreement has been approved by resolution of the House of Commons on a motion moved by a Minister of the Crown. B. A motion for the House of Lords to take note of the agreement has been tabled in House of Lords by a Minister of the Crown, and the House of Lords has debated the motion, or the House of Lords has not concluded the debate on the motion before the end of the period of 2 Lords sitting days, beginning with the first Lords sitting day after the day on which the House of Commons passes the resolution mentioned in paragraph A, which is the agreement been approved by resolution of the House of Commons. Yeah, interesting. 2. The condition in this subsection is that a Minister of the Crown has laid before each House of Parliament a statement that the UK has to leave the EU without an agreement having been reached under Article 50 of the Treaty of the EU, and a. The statement has been approved by resolution of the House of Commons on a motion moved by a Minister of the Crown in the following form: that this House approves the withdrawal of the UK from the EU under Article 50 of the Treaty on the EU on exit day without a withdrawal agreement as defined in Section 20 of the EU Withdrawal Act of 2018. And B. A motion for the House of Lords to take note of the statement has been tabled in the House of Lords by a Minister of the Crown and, well, earlier remarks, them debating and sitting and discussing. Yeah. Oh, look at that. They're trying to come up with terms for no deal, being verified, validated, justified, or negated unless approved by the House, which they won't approve. 3. If neither of the conditions in subsection 1 or 2 is satisfied, subsection 4 must be complied with no later than October 19th, 2019. 4. The Prime Minister must seek to obtain from the European Council an extension of the period under Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union ending at 11 p.m. on the 31st October 2019 by sending to the President of the European Council a letter in the form set out in the schedule to this Act requesting an extension of that period to 11 p.m. on the 31st of January 2020. 5. If following a request for an extension under subsection 4 but before the end of 30th of October, the condition in subsection or the condition in subsection 2 is met, the Prime Minister may withdraw or modify the request. All these terms are getting so specific. I like it. It's nice to know that they're trying to negate no deal entirely by forcing an extension. That's nice. I should also be clear when I said subsection 4, that is specifically relating to the part with the Prime Minister seeking to obtain an extension. That is what most are pushing for to negate no deal. Basically, if the Prime Minister can't get no deal approved by the House, which is a legal default and will happen anyway, with or without the House's ratification of it, it therefore goes to an extension, which, by the way, would be political suicide. Since we know no deal will not be voted through the House, it is safe to bet an extension is unlikely as well. So on to Section 2, Report on Progress of Negotiations. 1. In the event that an extension of the period under Article 50 on the Treaty of the European Union, ending 11 p.m. 31st of October 2019, is agreed with the European Council, the Secretary of State must, by the 30th of November, publish a report explaining what progress has been made in negotiations on the UK's relationship with the European Union. I'm starting to see that this one might be predicated on the assumption that Section 4, subsection 4, is applicable, and based on what I'm seeing, I'm sure many of you can now read it. Yeah, that's the entire point. Nice. Let's move on to number 3, because that's pointless. Duties in connection with Article 50 extension. 1. If the European Council decides to agree an extension of the period in Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union ending at 11 p.m. 31st of October to the period ending at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January 2020, the Prime Minister must immediately after such a decision is made notify the President of the European Council that the UK agrees to a proposed extension. 2. If the European Council decides to agree an extension of the period but to a date other than 11 p.m. on the 31st of January 2020, the Prime Minister must, within a period of 2 days beginning with the end of the day on which the European Council's decision is made, or before the end of the 30th of October 2019, notify the President of the European Council that the UK agrees to the proposed extension. Demands. Nice. 3. But subsection 2 does not apply if the House of Commons has decided not to pass a motion moved by a Minister of the Crown within a period of 2 calendar days, beginning with the end of the day on which the European Council's decision is made, or before the end of the 30th of October 2019, whichever is sooner in the following form. Blah. 4. Nothing in this section shall prevent the Prime Minister from agreeing to an extension of the period specified in Article 50 on the Treaty of the European Union otherwise than in accordance with this section. Nice. Classy. I'm still seeing demands. I like it. It's ballsy, even if it is utterly heretical. 4. Amendment of existing provision. In Section 20 of the European Union Withdrawal Act of 2018, which provides for regulations to be made amending the definition of exit day, for may, substitute must. I can actually agree with this one. On the screen now is the section he's referring to. Yeah, I agree. A Minister of the Crown must, by regulations, amend the definition of exit day in subsection 1 to ensure that the day and time specified in the definitions are day and time, that the treaties have ceased to apply to the UK, and amend subsection 2 in consequence of any such amendment. Yeah, must. I'm okay with that. Back to the points. 5. Interpretation, commencement, extent and short title. 1. Any term used in this Act, which is also defined in subsection 20 of the European Union Withdrawal Act, has the same meaning in this Act as in that Act. Lol. 2. European Council means the European Council acting for the purposes of Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union. Well, I wouldn't expect it to be the Teletubbies now, would I? 3. The provisions of this Act override any statutory or other provision which would otherwise require the UK to leave the EU on any specified date. No. 4. This Act extends to England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Since it doesn't say remain, Scotland's going to be pissed. 5. This Act comes into force on the day on which this Act is passed. They're going to try and pass this within the next couple of days. It's going to be quite amusing to see them try and make this happen. 6. This Act may be cited as the European Union Withdrawal No. 2 Act of 2019, including a little letter at the end here. The bill to be presented by Hilary Benn, supported by a group of heretics. Let's name them: Alistair Burt, Philip Hammond, lol, David Gork, Tom Brake, Stephen Gethins, Jonathan Edwards, Joan Ryan, Caroline Lucas, lol, Chris Bryant, Stephen Doughty, and Nick Bowles, lol. All nobodies. Yay. This is going to be fun to watch unfold. As far as I'm concerned, This letter is nothing more than a glorified attempt at trying to make it seem like you can make something happen. You want an extension. To what end? Oh, that's right. To basically stay in the EU, but have no say on it. Which is interesting because that was what Theresa May presented. And you guys still didn't agree to it. Oh wait, but we could just remain. Oh wait, but we could change it from within. We tried both of those. It didn't work. I wonder why that is. An organised body that only thinks for itself, electing those they want behind closed doors. Said with no irony when Boris Johnson was chosen by his own party and not by the people. People could argue Theresa May as well, I know, but at least she had an election. And I'm sure Boris will call one if this gets out of hand. If he does, by the way, it's more than likely he'll win a majority because, well, the polls seem to be indicating this, and because Jeremy Corbyn is a loser. But that's a subject for another time, perhaps tomorrow. Since Boris has ruled out an election, it'll certainly be interesting. I know this is a bit longer than usual, but I really wanted to go through this and just show you how much of a heretic some people are, how sad it is that they're so scared of something that we don't care about, that we know is going to happen because they can't agree on a deal. There is no version of a deal where they all agree. There is no majority for one, unless the deal is to remain. And that would be a slap in the face to 17.4 million people. 2020, everyone. No lives matter. Vote for me.